People think that Christianity is a religion of peace, of humanity, humanism, but that is not really so. And why? I will tell you. Christianity, when it came to Europe, when it started to taking over, it didn't want to accept any other religions in Europe but Christianity. So all the real European religions, like pagan religions, were all destroyed pretty much. And those who still refused to accept this new Jewish foreign religion were either killed or forced to do so in various ways. Fact is that both Catholic and Orthodox priests destroyed ancient pagan statues and temples as well, all across Europe. I know for a fact that they destroyed the ancient Slavic statues, such as a statue of Svantevit or Svetovit, who is the god of war in old Slavic mythology, and that was done by a bishop named Absalom, which is a Jewish name, of course, in Arkona, which today is in Germany. But back then it was a Slavic inhabited place. Even today, I imagine it has a quite many inhabitants of Slavic origin. Anyway, and there was the so famed and beloved Saints Cyril and Methodius, who are the main and the principal saints of the Greek Orthodox Church. They did invent the Cyrillic letter writing, but they also destroyed a statue of God Radovost in Czech Republic, as well as some others, I believe, were not mentioned. All these gods, especially Radovost, were peaceful gods. Radovost, whose name was later taken by Tolkien when he created the figure of Radagast, the wizard, in The Hobbit. He was a god of hospitality, and his very name means a dear guest. Oh yeah, a welcome guest, a dear guest. And so there wasn't really any reason to destroy such a deity, because he wasn't some kind of god of chaos and evil or whatever, or decadence or whatever. Like for instance, Dionysus is. And whilst Svetovit is a god of war, he is also a god of fertility. So he is more, I think, like Athena, a god of defense more than attack. So yeah. Still, but unfortunately, they didn't quite manage to destroy all the ancient pagan symbols, and some of them survived, but disguised as Christian uh, God or Christian religious figures. And yes, there is this Arcona was really one of the most sacred, most important temples of Slavic peoples. And yeah, so this is the proof. Like, if our religion cannot coexist peacefully with others, how then can it be a religion of peace? I ask you. While at the same time, uh, many Christians, I believe, I mean, especially very conservative ones, call Islam the religion of war, but the fact is that Islam coexisted with many other religions peacefully for centuries until recently. So which is the real religion of war here? Same can be said about the Judaism. I'm not trying to say, of course, that Islam is better. I mean, a more peaceful religion. It all comes down to how you interpret it. But the fact is that it has undeservedly gotten the rap of a war-mongering religion, while Christianity and Judaism has not, for some reason. Even though in Judaism there are plenty of things that are written that kind of justify the killing of, like, for instance, Gentiles and all who they view as enemies of Israel and its people. So it's really a quite war-mongering, actually, religion. And yeah, as I said, it all comes down to people's individual interpretation. But the fact that we now have so many extreme Islamic forces is, well, it can all be, I think, attributed to the Iraq war and some other illegal wars or military interventions that has been made. I mean, both Iraq wars has been undertaken by United States of America and its allies, UK, for instance, and their own aggressive behavior towards some uh, of the leaders in the Muslim world, I think, must be also blamed, not just the actions of the people in the Muslim world, the terrorists, I mean, and you know, ISIS and such, Taliban, such groups. These are really foul and extreme groups, but I don't think they would have so much power and influence without both Iraq wars, for instance. So one must always look at himself and his own side first before you start blaming everybody else. Yeah, the worst thing, I think, is that Europe always had to pay for the mistakes of others. or for the mistakes of former colonial powers such as England or UK, and for the mistakes of USA and its foreign policy. And Europe is still paying for those mistakes, whether it supports even those who do not support that, all those mistakes. But these guys, they don't really separate, Yeah. So, but to return to my original point is because of Christianity and it becoming the principal and pretty much the only legal religion in Europe, we have lost a lot of knowledge about our ancient culture, and instead we have gotten to know more about culture and history of people that live far away from Europe. So that's something that I'm not really fond of. I believe many people, if they start to think about this, they will not be fond of this fact. But it's a really great, of course, irony that the Jews were not, in the end, many of them were either killed or driven out of Europe, despite the fact that their own religion and history and mythology became Europe's own. But uh, that's just sad, and it was a kind of like a revenge of the pagan European culture, even though it was not a just revenge. I mean, it was not a good revenge, but people like Hitler, I know he loved all this Germanic, ancient Germanic culture, all that pre-Christian culture. And it was his way also of, like saying, we don't need this Jewish, bullshit. We don't need that. So that's just how it went. The Jewish religion entered Europe with violence, and then it also bred violence. It didn't end, but it was kind of the reason for so much violence and terrible stuff happening. Yeah, that was really. So my point is that this religion should have never really entered Europe, and that it was just kind of fanatic religion. It wasn't really what we needed. It was. I think paganism would have served us better, much better, and it wouldn't have most likely altered our way of life so drastically. Because paganism teaches you to be one with nature, to live, in pact with nature, and not just look for something, beyond that. So, as I said in my previous video about Easter and paganism versus Christianity, uh, paganism was more an earthly, more natural religion than Christianity. Christianity. You know, it happened the way it happened, and we have, I think, all had to pay the price because our freedom was taken away, and not ours, but our ancestors' freedom was, limited and, caged, whatever you want to call it. You weren't allowed to do this, you weren't allowed to do that, you weren't allowed to have a child, with someone without being married to this woman. You weren't allowed to have sex before marriage. You were not allowed to use a condom to, you know, I mean, okay, condoms didn't exist hundreds of years ago, but still, you know what I mean. Abortion wasn't allowed. And the worst thing is that these kind of very primitive and negative laws are coming back in certain countries in Europe that are not as developed in all ways, like Croatia, for instance. Croatia is a very Catholic country, and now they have actually made a new law that abortion is against the law. It's prohibited. And even though their own president is against it, but it's stronger, than her. It's stronger than just one man. You cannot fight it. You must have a majority of people with you, but they don't, because so many are. It's deeply rooted in them. This very, very, very violent religion and old-fashioned religion. So that's what we get. What you get now. You get boneheadedness. Is the best way to describe it. These boneheaded people, telling you that you can't do that. You'll go to hell if you do that, whatever. If you don't, because it's against God, and it's all nonsense. Really. I don't know what else to say about it. It's nonsense.